Good afternoon, Pankhurst, and welcome to your first wider curriculum lesson this week. So now we have finished DT and we will be starting history. So today is Tuesday, the 26th of January 2021, and your learning objective today is, can I use sources to explore what the Victorian period was like and identify who Queen Victoria is? So you're going to be looking at different types of sources. So we spoke about sources in our history lesson before, and it's different types of places where you would find information from. So you're going to look at different sources and see what the Victorian period was like, and then you're going to learn a bit about who Queen Victoria was. Now, who were the Victorians? Okay, on a piece of paper, I want you to mind map what you already know about the Victorians. So if you pause the screen now and do a mind map on a piece of paper about what you think who the Victorians are. And when you're ready, come back to my screen. Okay, fantastic. So now let's put this in perspective. So we have looked at what timelines are before. Okay, we have looked at timelines. It's an order in it's a line which shows you the order of how things happen or how things have happened, and you can use timelines for any sort of topic. You can use a timeline for your life. In September we used a timeline for dinosaurs. We looked at the three different periods that dinosaurs existed, and they were all in a timeline. So if you look over here, the time of the Victorians was after the Tudors and before World War One. Some of you may have learned about the Stone Age, or the Romans, Vikings, Tudors, Anglo-Saxons. But I think some of these you will be learning about in year 4. And then you have World War One and World War Two. Yeah. So the period of Victorians, so the Victorian time happened after the Tudors and before World War One. So it's here. And we are here where it says today, 2021. And a timeline carries on always and never stops. So this timeline will carry on. We may be here, but in the future, there will be a timeline where we're seen as history over here, but their present time is on the other end of the timeline. Okay, now here are some facts about the Victorian period. The Victorian period refers to the time in Britain when Queen Victoria was the queen. So Queen Victoria was the queen during 1837 to 1901. Okay, so the Victorian period is the time when Queen Victoria ruled the country. Everyday life was quite different to how it is now. Most people did not have access to electrical devices or cars for much of this period. So that time was very different to what we have now. In that time, they didn't have electrical things or cars. The Victorian period was a time of huge change. A huge change. Britain's population doubled in size and busy cities began to grow and thrive. So that means busy cities began to grow and get bigger and had more things going on in it. So it was thriving with business, with, I don't know, schooling maybe. Many new inventions came about during this period, including railways and factory machines. Okay, the increase in population meant that demand for food and housing was high, and many people ended up living in poverty. So poverty means people ended up living poor. Okay, so they weren't able to afford these things or afford to live. Who was Queen Victoria? So here you've got a picture of Queen Victoria. Okay, Queen Victoria was queen for almost 64 years. She was born on the 24th of May, 1819, and died on January the 22nd, 1901. Queen Victoria's full title was Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. In 1876, she was given the title Empress of India. Okay, so this is Queen Victoria, and she ruled for 64 years. Princess Victoria was born in 1819. Her father was King George the Fourth. So her father was King George the Fourth, but he died when Victoria was just 8 months old. Her uncle became King William the Fourth. As in those days, any male relatives would take the throne before a woman would. It's a good job because Victoria was just a baby. So Prince Victoria was born in 1819. This is a painting of her when she was a little child, and her father was King George the Fourth. And then when he died, her uncle King William the Fourth became the king. King William the Fourth died in 1837 when Victoria was 18 years old. William had no children, so Victoria was now queen. Okay, so when people become kings and queens, it's always the first child that is the heir of the throne. Okay, so in this case, because her father was king, but then she had an uncle, he became king because she was a baby, but her uncle had no children, which meant she became queen. In 1840, Queen Victoria married her cousin Albert. She was 21 years old. They then had 9 children, 5 girls and 4 boys. In 1861, Albert died at the age of 42. Queen Victoria was devastated and wore black for the rest of her life, 40 years. Okay, so for 40 years she wore black in mourning of her husband. In 1901, Queen Victoria died. She was 81 years old. Her successor was her eldest son, Albert Edward. He became King Edward the Seventh. Okay. Now we are going to look at some sources. Okay, so we are going to look at some sources. We are going to use these sources to help us find out about what the Victorian period was really like. Okay, but before we do, can you remember what a source is? So put your thinking caps on, have a good think. Can you remember what a source is? Okay, fantastic. A source is something that tells us about history. Okay, it could be a primary source, something from that time. So, for example, paintings, photos, objects, or letters. So, a primary source is something from that time. So, it's the closest thing to that part in history. A secondary source is something written after the time using a primary source to help. So a secondary source is written up after that time has gone, and they use the primary sources to help them. And the tertiary source is something that summarizes information from primary and secondary sources. We are going to have a look at 4 primary sources, which are paintings. We are going to analyze each painting to help us understand what the Victorian period was like. Okay. As we look at each painting, I want you to think about and note down the following. I want you to think about and note down what is happening in the painting. What are their clothes like? How do the people look? Happy, sad, excited, or angry? Look at the name of the painting and what does it tell you? Okay, so I am going to start showing you the paintings in a second, and if you can just get your piece of paper and a pencil so you can start writing about you can start making notes on the following questions. Okay, so on your piece of paper I want you to take notes about these pictures while we're discussing them. Okay, so these are the things I want you to take a note of. So this is a painting called The Pinch of Poverty. It's created by an artist called Thomas Benjamin Kennington in 1889. Now, what do you think is happening in the picture? Have a good think. What do you think is happening in the picture? What are their clothes like? How do the people look? Happy, sad, excited, or angry? Look at the name of the painting. What does it tell you? Okay, pause the screen, and if you can just have a good look at the painting and just note down some things for these questions. Okay, great. So now in this painting, you can see 4 people selling flowers, okay? And the flowers are daffodils. And if you have a look at the clothes, the clothes are very worn out, torn, ripped, very old, scraggy looking. Yeah. And these people don't look very happy. They don't look happy. They look miserable. They look sad. They look, very fed up of life. And you can tell that they are in a town selling flowers. Yeah. And the way you can tell that they're in a town is because it's got cobbled flooring, so like pavement and stuff. It looks like you've got a little town park and they're sat on like near the railings. You can tell that it's a town because there's buildings at the back and people selling stuff, and also people, it looks very busy at the back. Okay, now the name of this painting is The Pinch of Poverty. So this means that these people are poor, so they're living in poverty, so they're poor, and it's a pinch of poverty, meaning it's very tight. So it's very tight for them. They can't just get by, and they aren't getting by. Okay, so now I want you to have a good think. If they are poor and they're just about getting by, and their clothes and shoes look worn out and torn, how do you think their house might be? What kind of house or home do you think they live in? How do you think their home might be? Do you think it might be as comfortable as ours? Like, how do you think they live? Okay, if you can just have a good think about that and note that down if you'd like to. Okay, now the next picture. Have a good look at this picture. And I would like you to write down what you think is happening in the painting. What their clothes look like? How do the people look? Do they look happy, sad, excited, or angry? Look at the name of the painting. What does it tell you? So this painting is by William Powell Frith, and is called A Private View at the Royal Academy, and it was painted in 1881. Okay, just have a good look at it. Pause the screen and have a good look and note down some notes for those questions. So now, if you have a look at the painting, okay, in the painting you can see that they are interested in something. They're looking around. There's a crowd of people and they all look very well dressed. There's children there, there's adults there, and everyone just looks very busy looking at something, and they look very interested. The clothes look very expensive, so men are wearing top hats and suits and long jackets and lovely shoes. The women are wearing big beautiful dresses and lovely jewelry, elegant looking clothes, clean, tidy, very royal type. And the people look very happy and excited. They look very intrigued by something that's happening. Yeah. And they all look like, they're in a very lovely gathering. So now, if you look at the name of the painting, it says A Private View at the Royal Academy. So you can tell from this it's private and it's royal. So if you look at how they're crowded and how close they are and how they're talking in little groups, you can tell that it's private. So they all know each other. They all probably know each other. And royal. So you can tell that it was a very royal affair. Yeah. So which means it was a very royal event that was happening. And so this shows you that all the people that probably attended here were rich people, elite people that had loads of money and that had connections with the royal family, because it's a private view at a royal academy. Yeah. And there's a very famous Victorian here called Oscar Wilde, and you know, you may have heard of him, you may have not. So hopefully we might be learning more about this Victorian. Okay, now let's go on to the next picture. So the next picture is a painting, sorry, not picture. So this is a painting called Inaugural Journey of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. And this was painted by A.B. Clayton in 1830. Okay, have a good look at the picture, and I want you to note down anything that you notice in these pictures that goes with these questions. Okay, so pause the video and take down your notes, and then come back to the video when you are ready. So if you have a look at this painting, this was the first inner city railway, which was from Liverpool to Manchester. Rather than it being on horsepower, it was steam power. Okay, so if you see in the picture, you know, there's passengers on the railway, and you know, you can't see clearly, but if you try to see, you can see the men in like nice suits and jackets and hats. Women are well dressed, you know, so this shows that it was probably the rich using it. Okay, and you can't see the hands, but you can see that they're probably very happy to find a quick, easy way to travel from city to city in a fast, speedy way, rather than using a horse. You know, now it's steam trains. You can see at the back there's two men with their hands up. They're probably quite excited to be sitting on here. Yeah, so overall in this picture you can see that the elite are using this new inner city steam train. Yeah. Now if you have a look at this picture, I want you to note down this painting, sorry, I want you to note down anything that you see that's related to these questions. Now this is an 1875 painting by Sir Luke Fildes. Okay, it's called The Widower. Okay, now if you just have a nice look at it, and then you can write down what you notice. So now if you have a look at this painting, you can see it's a very dark, dull painting. It's very different to what these paintings are, like vibrant and colorful. Okay, it's very dark and dull, which caused a lot of issues in the Victorian times, because the rich people didn't want to see dark, dull paintings, and these dark, dull paintings, you know, make you feel depressed and unhappy. And if you have a look at the context of the picture, you can see that, you know, the people are wearing old ripped clothes, so which probably gives you an indication that they're poor. You can see that the father is nursing the sick child. There's little children that are just you know, walking around, and it's like one little shabby hut. You know, the eldest child and the dad are covering their mouth, so they might be covering their mouth to cover a cough, or they might be very upset. You know, I don't know if they knew what germs were then, but maybe they were trying to cover something up, you know, maybe the way they feel, or or just trying to hide their emotions from the younger children. The younger children seem very unaware of what's happening because they're children, but the eldest child and the dad seem very upset and unhappy. You know, they could be crying, you know, he's holding a sick child possibly, or a child that he's nursing. And if you have a look at the word of the name of the painting is called The Widower. And the widower is when a person is married and their husband or their wife dies, and then they're left alone. So if you look at this, the man's wife has probably died. So the man's partner has probably died, which means he's left by himself with 5 kids. And these, especially the younger ones, are very unaware that their mother isn't around. Yeah. So, you know, it's a very unhappy, sad painting. Okay. Now that we've looked at the paintings, I just have a bit of information for you here. The Victorian era was one of the great contrasts between the life of the rich and that of the poor. The rich lived a life of ease and comfort. They had servants to run their large houses. They wore elaborate clothing and ate meals of many courses. So they had many courses for a meal, not just a three-course meal. Okay. The life of the Victorian poor was extremely challenging. They often didn't have enough money for a decent meal or housing. So today your task is the following. I want you to summarize what the Victorian period was like by using the paintings we made notes on to help you. You can either record yourself talking about it or you could write a paragraph about it. Please upload your work to Tapestry, okay? Using all the information that you learned today from this video and all the information that you learned from the paintings, please summarize what the Victorian period must have been like. Okay, don't forget to upload your work on Tapestry, and I will see you in your next lesson, Pankhurst. Bye.